This Audi S4 has come quite a long ways since I first purchased it. When I bought it, I couldn't even test drive it, and now we're to the point where we're about to tune it for more horsepower. I find it incredibly fulfilling and therapeutic to restore a car, to take something that was broken and not being used and bring it back to life to the point where you can use it and enjoy it for what it was meant to be. That is exactly what I've done with this S4, and today we're going to continue that process by upgrading the fuel injectors, improving a little bit of cosmetics, and most of all, tuning the car. Every single car responds differently to tuning, but the B5 S4 is known for responding incredibly well to it. This is going to be a fully remote tune done by the tuners at Motosa Performance. Last week they sent me a kit in which I was able to read the base software that was on this ECU. I then sent this directly to them and have been waiting for them to send me a modified base map to go with the injectors that came with it. We've already upgraded the ignition and the airflow systems, so now we need to upgrade the fueling system of the car. Injectors are one of those modifications that are great when you have custom software to tell them what to do. If you put bigger injectors on your car and don't tell the ECU that it has bigger injectors, you're going to run into trouble because it's going to be flowing a lot more fuel than it realizes and running really rich. Thankfully, the tuner sent us the base map and we're good to start installing the injectors. At this point, I really wasn't sure what to expect from the bigger injectors and the tune. Some cars gain only a little bit of power, some gain throttle response, and some gain gobs of torque. I really didn't know where the S4 was going to fall into line with that. Whenever you're dealing with any fuel lines or anything like that, it's always a good idea to unplug the battery just in case the pumps decide to turn on for some unknown reason. I am continually impressed with the engineering of this B5 S4. I feel like it was designed to be maintained, and it was designed to be worked on furthermore. Today we're replacing injectors, and the fuel rail is literally available right after you take off the stock airbox Y-pipe. Once that's off, you really only have a checklist of vacuum lines, fuel lines, and different screws before you can remove the fuel rail. I started by removing these two vacuum lines from the tube on the fuel rail. Next, it was the part I was actually pretty apprehensive about, removing the actual fuel line. There's likely going to be a little bit of pressure in this and fuel that's going to seep out, so I decided to put down some paper towels. If I were to do this the professional way, what I would probably do is take the fuel pump fuse out and run the car till it's out of gas. But there really isn't much fuel in the fuel rail to begin with, so this was also a valid option. While I had the engine open, I took the opportunity to look at a bunch of my vacuum lines and learn the lay of the land. If you're doing this on your own S4, what you really want to do is remove all the vacuum lines and the hose clips that are connected directly to the fuel rail to the point where you can rotate the fuel rail up and get access to the injectors. The fuel rail itself is held down with some Allen bolts, which can be simply removed. If they've been here a while, they're easy to strip, so be careful though. Now at first glance, this or any engine may seem overwhelming due to the amount of stuff that's just going on. To take a little bit from my work as an engineer, one of the best ways to learn a complex system is to investigate each part individually. I've never done this job on the S4 before, so I'm taking every chance I have to learn as I go. This means following all the fuel lines and following the vacuum lines and tracing them in my brain to understand where things are. This will be really helpful in the future if I ever have a problem with the car. Now you can unplug each injector. Once the fuel rail's unbolted, it can kind of be popped out of place and it'll rotate up like this, giving you access to the injectors. If you'd prefer, you can also remove the fuel rail entirely from the vehicle and work on it on a table. This is what the new 550cc Bosch injector looks like next to the original one. Each original injector is held on with a retaining clip. If you're like me, you'll learn pretty quickly that there's still fuel behind these injectors as you try to pop them out. I suggest you have a paper towel in your hand when you do this, just so it doesn't get everywhere. I was doing a lot of research on upgrading the fuel injectors on this car, and they specifically suggest that you use the O-rings from the original injectors when you put the new ones in. I'm going to follow this advice because they're thicker O-rings and they're going to help seal the engine better. Here are both injectors side by side, and you can see what years of development has actually done to improve these injectors. Even though they're skinnier, they flow more fuel. Learning from my mistakes, I used paper towels to remove the remaining injectors and replace them with the new ones. I made sure to be really methodical when it came to this, and I went one at a time. Removing the clip, popping the old injector out, replacing the O-rings onto the new injector, putting the new injector in, and then returning the clip. This job has a lot of steps, but it really is pretty straightforward if you go one step at a time. I find it both exciting and nerve-wracking to do a new job for the first time. Not only am I new to B5S4 maintenance, I am new to doing fuel injectors. People get really uncomfortable when they don't know how to do something. This is completely natural, but it's also something that you can get better at. Here's an interesting analogy to Legos that I find really helpful in understanding the best ways to learn in an unfamiliar environment. Don't look at the big picture. Look at each piece individually. Like any system, Lego kits can be broken down into individual pieces, which can be understood based on their intrinsic nature. You can look at their shape, color, and size and get a general gist of what they can do. Similarly, you can learn that about pretty much any item in any system. In my opinion, learning is all about taking ideas and concepts that you understand and can work with, and combining them and molding them in order to form new ideas which you can use in future situations or to create further learning. Let's say you have a complex system of vacuum lines on a car, which is pretty common for German cars. Once you realize that the purpose of a vacuum line by itself is to translate air pressure or vacuum along a distance, you can start to understand the system. Then you can look at both ends of the vacuum line and get a sense of what the whole purpose of the system is. This can be applied to any part of a car and furthermore, almost any part of life. Now back to the installation. After you get the fuel rail situated and pop it back into place, you can go ahead and start reinstalling all the vacuum lines and the hoses. If you're worried about remembering where everything goes, most of these hoses have a very specific shape that they've held for years, so they're naturally going to want to fall back to where they were connected. During this installation, I noticed something that my car was actually missing. A lot of these vacuum lines that are meant to hold really high pressure actually didn't have hose clamps on them. That's a big no-no in my opinion because it's going to introduce a vacuum leak when they're loosely attached. This just goes to show you that owning a whole bag of universal hose clamps is always a good decision when you work on cars. I triple checked that I tightened absolutely everything in the system and that I was good to put the Y-pipe back in place to the stock airbox. This was a pretty in-depth installation, and while I was pretty nervous since it was new to me if I was going to be able to get the car to start, I was more so excited to see what the tune had to offer. While I was installing this, in the background I had my computer downloading the file that was modified from Motoza. This is our tune, and it's a modified version of our base read of our ECU. We can get past the security features of the car's ECU by uploading a version of its own software that is modified for our purposes. Once we put the battery back in place, we need to put a battery tender on the car because we're going to upload this software, and that can take quite a bit of time. It's as simple as connecting the tuning app to your car and selecting the right file to upload.
So now we wait. I've never done injectors before, so hopefully the car doesn't catch on fire. It's always nerve-wracking to tune your car because on the off chance it fails while uploading, your car's done. You can't turn it on and you're gonna have to take the ECU out and hard reset it, which is annoying. If you don't know how to do that or you don't have pretty good computer skills, you're gonna have to send your ECU to the tuner itself, and at that point you might as well just chip and shipped it, which is another way to tune the car. The people at Motoza sent over a base map for the 550cc injectors. We can't run the car without them. Ironically enough, I got more parts as I was working on the car, so that's always fun. My goal is just to get it running, make sure that there's no fuel leak, hope I didn't create any new air leaks and whatnot. I'm excited to see what it does. This is basically the first part of our stage 1 tune. There's 91 octane in the car currently. I'm going to set the car on 91 octane mode, and then we'll switch to 93 tomorrow when we go get gas because we're probably going to be out by then. We're almost out anyways. We're at about 4th of tank, and we're supposed to switch at about 8th of tank, so we'll have some fun tomorrow. I'm excited.
ECU right successful, baby. Let's do it.
It was time for the first start, and I was incredibly nervous because we changed quite a bit about this car.
Moment of truth, we're going to try and fire it up. Probably going to take a while. Definitely sounds weird. Definitely sounds weird. Yeah, we definitely have a misfire. Something is very wrong. I'm gonna go double check all the connections again and see if that helps anything. Everything is definitely connected, so that's kind of weird that it idles like this. It's misfiring and I really don't know why.
We've recently done work on spark plugs, injectors, and coils, and each one of these has an electrical connection to the wiring harness. Since this work was all done recently, I was really hoping that I just forgot to plug something in, or it just wasn't plugged in all the way. A lot of times when you're misfiring after working with these harnesses, it's really just an electrical problem.
Okay, that's better. Sounds good. Okay, now we're good. So I guess replugging stuff in was definitely the trick. Car feels like normal so far. I haven't punched it. The misfire's definitely gone. So I think something that I did as far as replugging stuff in, messing with the connections, definitely helped. One of the cylinders probably just wasn't fully hooked in. That's pretty normal. Putting hose clamps where I didn't have them is definitely a big move for this car because I can hear my diverter valves now and my idle vacuum pressure is lower than it was, which is really good. Okay, we are misfiring hard under partial throttle. You can definitely hear the diverter valves now, which is cool because you couldn't before. Like that. Look at this, my idle vacuum's fine. Okay, so it's partial throttle around 3,000 RPMs that kind of stutters. I don't really know what caused that. It could be a whole number of things. Definitely something we want to sort out though. I'm actually gonna check on the engine, make sure there's no gas everywhere. That's good. No check engine light. Idle sounds completely normal. Doesn't look like there's any leaks, so I think we're good to actually push it. It's warmed up now. We do have a tune, so it might be a little faster. We'll see. This is interesting. So whenever I push the clutch in, my idle vacuum changes. Something I'm gonna look into. I don't know if that's normal. Clutch out, clutch in. Clutch out, clutch in. Weird car. Holy freaking heck. Holy crap. Holy shit. Whoa. Hey, that was, oh, whoa. That was, it's a lot more violent than I thought it would be. Dear God. Dear God. Oh my God. Holy crap. What in God's name? What? Oh my. Yeah, so it's oh my God. I'm sorry. It's pretty fast. It's a wee bit faster than I thought it was. It doesn't like partial throttle, but is it fast? This is so much faster than the TT. And I'm only on 91, so I'm on the weakest tune of the 4 that I got. Oh God. This will be fun.
A few moments later.
Something blew up. That's not good. Yes, my diverter valve blew off, and that would definitely cause it to explode. That's scary.
Not only am I happy with the first iteration of the tune, but I am blown away by how much torque this car has. KO3s are a very small turbo, meaning they spool quickly, so all the power you gain while under boost comes on extremely aggressively and slaps you in the face. There are a few things we need to do before we can road dyno this tune, however. First and foremost, we need to drive around on the tune for a little bit to help the car adapt, and then send a log into Motiza so that they can send us a revision of this map. In other words, this car's only going to become more powerful and run smoother as this tuning process continues. Now, before we go get our log, there's something I want to do to this car cosmetically. I don't generally do cosmetic mods until the car is in really good working condition, but it's my birthday weekend and this was an early birthday present to myself. This is a duckbill spoiler meant for the B5S4 by ECS Tuning in gloss black. Ever since I was little, I have always loved the look of duckbill spoilers, especially on sedans such as the S4, the M3, and the Lancer Evo. The S4 is a design lesson in understatement and German simplicity. Similarly, I think the duckbill spoiler is a very understated way to add a performance look to your car. And it's nowhere near as obnoxious as a 6-foot-long carbon fiber wing. It was warm enough outside that I didn't have to do a ton of work to heat the surface up before applying the spoiler. I installed the TT spoiler in winter, but it's warm enough that I really didn't have to do as much prep on this. I used isopropyl alcohol to make sure the surface was completely clear. I then made sure to heat the 3M tape as it was applying for around 30 to 40 minutes just to make sure that the bond was well formed. 3M tape is really cool because it's not just sticky, it forms a chemical bond attaching the two pieces together. I wanted to use 3M tape so that the spoiler could be removable when I end up wrapping the car in the future. That will be much later in the build process, however. Now that the car is looking extra pretty, it's time for us to log the ECU and send it over to Motoza. After ogling at a pretty GT500 and talking with the nice owner, I filled the car up with gas. I went with the highest octane that I had available, which was 92 today since 93 was all out. So what is logging the ECU? When you connect the Motoza app to your car and click the log button, it's going to start recording every sensor available in the car and displaying them on both a graph and in an Excel file.
We're currently logging for our 91 octane tune. Basically, the gist of remote tuning is the tuner sends you a base map for a specific octane. You run that base map. After you send them a log, they're going to make some adjustments such as boost and timing and all of that jazz just to make sure the car's running at its peak performance. That's likely the reason we're having some misfires, because we went to bigger injectors and every engine's different, so it needs to be configured specifically for our engine. That's what this log is going to be helpful with. We need to do a few wide open throttle pulls in third gear, and we need to get some idling data, which is good because we're in traffic. The tune is only going to get better over the course of the next few weeks, but so far I am incredibly impressed. We've also got some fun goodies like no lift shift and two-step to try out, but we'll talk about those later.
I drove around for about 20 minutes or so, making sure to follow the directions of the logging instructions, including third gear pulls and quick brakes and accelerations. The people at Motoza should have everything they need to improve the tune, and when we upload the next file, it is going to be even better. I'm on the least potent version of the tune that I can run, and the S4 is just going to get more fun. If you enjoyed the video or learned something, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. It tremendously helps my channel out. The support is absolutely unreal, and it makes me feel super excited to post every episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.